हरिः ओम् नमः सर्वेभ्यः। अद्य कृदन्तप्रकरणस्य षडशीतितमः पाठः। अस्मिन् वर्गे निष्ठाप्रत्ययोः प्रक्रियायां त्रिपादिकार्यं कथं भवति तस्य अध्ययनं प्रारभामहे। येनाक्षरसमाम्नायमधिगम्य महेश्वरात् कृत्स्नं व्याकरणं प्रोक्तं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः। वाक्यकारं वररुचिं भाष्यकारं पतञ्जलिं पाणिनिं सूत्रकारं च प्रणतोऽस्मि मुनित्रयं नमस्कृत्य तदुक्ति परिभाव्य च वैयाकरण सिद्धांत कौमुदीयं विरच्यते। निष्ठा प्रत्ययोः प्रक्रियायां प्रारंभिकानि सर्वाणि सोपानानि अस्माभिः अधीतानि। ह्यस्तनवर्गे उत्तरपदाधिकार कार्यं तथा च वर्णकार्यम् अपि दृष्टम्। अद्य अग्रे सरामः। अन्तिमः सोपानः त्रिपादिकार्यम् इति अस्ति। तत्र प्रायः बहूनि कार्याणि तत्र पूर्वेषु वर्गेषु अस्माभिः दृष्टानि सन्ति, परन्तु त्रिपाद्यां निष्ठाप्रत्ययम् अधिकृत्य निष्ठातकारस्य भिन्नाः आदेशाः उच्यन्ते। एतेषां विषये कुत्रचित् षत्वस्य विषये णत्वस्य विषये विशिष्टानि नूतनानि कार्याणि इतोपि अस्माभिः पठितव्यानि सन्ति। एतेषां सर्वेषाम् अध्ययनम् अत्र प्रारभामहे। अत्र त्रिपाद्याः सूत्राणां संकलनरूपेण पश्यामः। तानि सूत्राणि अध्ययनं कुर्मः तर्हि तत्र त्रिपाद्याः अग्रे केचन उपविभागाः सरलरूपेण प्रतीयन्ते। अत्र शीट् मध्ये अपि प्रकरणं लास्ट् कॉलम प्रकरणम् इति अस्ति। तत्र लिखितमस्ति प्रारम्भे बहुषु सूत्रेषु तत्र पदान्ते कार्यं नो चेत् झलिपरे कार्यम्। So a bunch of sutras in the beginning of 8.2, they talk about a certain karya that happens at the end of the pada or when a jhal letter is present. Now when it comes to krudanta prakaranam, tatra padanta nishtha prakriyayam tu padanta ityasya kimapi prayojanam atah jhali pare karyam tatra त प्रत्ययस्य नो चेत् तवतु प्रत्ययस्य तकारः झल् वर्णः अस्ति, अतः यत्र यत्र इडागमः न भवति तत्र तत्र झलि परे अस्य सूत्रस्य एतेषां सूत्राणां प्रसक्तिः विद्यते. So that's the first important section. These are not like completely separate sections, or these are not like completely exhaustive. There will be some sutras here and there that don't fit in any of these groups, but on the face of it, as you know, as a high level view, these 4 or 5 sections are very useful when it comes to systematic study of the nishtha of the tripadi karyas. So first prathamam karyam asti tatra jhali pare karyam. This is what we will quickly see in today's class. All the jhali karyani we have already seen in Khanda 1, class number 25. I had also requested on the group to revise all those karyas in this week. The next important section is nishtha takarasya adeshaha. So surprisingly, a bunch of sutras in 8.2, around 20 to 25 sutras in 8.2 talk about the conversion of the nishtha takara. The takara which appears at the beginning of the nishtha pratyaya, it gets converted many times to nakara. In some cases, it also gets converted to some other adeshas, like say makara or say vakara or say kakara. Different adeshas for the nishtha takara are possible. So that entire section is shown in the yellow color. This is what we will concentrate in today's class. We won't be able to finish it in today's class. We will be continuing it in next week's class also. So that's the second important section. The third important section, as you scroll down, it's shown in green color. It is basically a part of 8.3, the sakarasya shakaradesha, apadantasya murdhanyaha, inkoho, num visarjaniya sharvyavayepi, adesha pratyeho, shasivasi ghasinancha. So a part of tripadi is dedicated to conversion of a sa to a sh, commonly known as shatva prakaranam. So a lot of sutras of shatva prakaranam have already been discussed. I will also point you to the video which you should see before coming to the next class. Some of these, like 5 or 6 sutras, are new. We will study them in details. So that's the whole bunch of third section, sakarasya shakaradeshaha. Tadanantaram agre chaturthaha vargaha asti, upaganaha asti, nakarasya nakaradeshaha. Rashabhyam nuna samanapade at kupvam num vyavayepi, and so on. So nakarasya nakaradesha. Towards the end, there is a fifth miscellaneous section which will have chutvam, shtutvam, dvitvam, jashtvam, chartvam, anunasikatvam, parasavarna, and so on. So these are 5 basic sections of the tripadi in context of the nishtha pratyayas. We will start with the discussion of the first section and the second section today. So first, Jhalipade Karyani is very simple, that we will do in next 15-20 minutes, and then the rest of the class we will spend on nishtha takarasya adeshaha. तत्र प्रारभामहे येषां सूत्राणां पूर्वमध्ययनं कृतं तेषां झटिति निर्देशं कृत्वा अग्रे सरामि। किमर्थं? ये नूतनाः विषयाः यानि नूतनानि सूत्राणि तेषां सम्यक् रूपेण अध्ययनार्थम् अस्माकं समयः आवश्यकः। अतः अत्र पूर्वत्र सिद्धम् इति अधिकारसूत्रं सपाद सप्ताध्यायीं प्रति त्रिपादी असिद्धा त्रिपाद्याम् अपि पूर्वं प्रतिपरं शास्त्रम् असिद्धं स्यात्। त्रिपाद्याम् अपि उत्सर्गापवादः सम्बन्धः भवितुम् अर्हति। अपवाद सूत्रं परसूत्रम् अस्ति चेदपि उत्सर्गं विधान सामर्थ्यात् अवश्यं बाधते इति अपि अस्माभिः पूर्वं दृष्टम्। तत्र प्रथमं सूत्रं त्रिपाद्यां प्रविशामश्चेत् तत्र प्रथमं सूत्रमेव अस्माकं प्रक्रियायाम् आवश्यकं सूत्रं कृपो रोलः, तथा च तदनन्तरं विद्यमानम् उपसर्गस्य आयतौ एते द्वे सूत्रे लत्वस्य विषये वदतः। So a r is converted to l by the sutra krupo ro laha and the next sutra upasargasya ayatau. Both have been taught earlier. Krupadhatoho rephasya lakaradeshah bhavati raha iti shruti samanyam upadiyate. So a r which is a standalone vyanjana called r and which comes as a part of ru. So when you speak the swara ru, there is a component of r sitting over there. So both of these are to be considered over here. That's what he says. Shruti samanyam, not the mere vyanjan, but any entity which is heard like r, repha. Shruti samanyam upadiyate. Tena yaha kevalah repha, yaha rukarastha repha, dvayoho api grahanam. So then r will become l and ru will become lu. Kasya vishaye? Krupa iti dhatoho vishaye. So krupa iti dhatoho vishaye rephasya lu iti adeshah bhavati, l iti adeshah bhavati, rukarasya lu iti adeshah bhavati. So krupa plus ta becomes klupta. As simple as that. The next one, upasargasya ayatau, पुनरेकवारं तत्र रेफस्य लकारादेशः, परन्तु तत्र उपसर्गस्थ रेफस्य लकारादेशः अय इति धातुः, एकस्यैव धातोः विषये इदं सूत्रं प्रवर्तते। अय इति धातुः परा इति उपसर्गः, परा इत्यस्य उपसर्गस्य रेफस्य लकारादेशः भवति। उपसर्गस्य आयतौ इति सूत्रेण अयति परस्य उपसर्गस्य यः रेफः तस्य लत्वं स्यात्। para plus aya plus ta, parayita becomes palayita. So upasargasya repha, so you can have pra or you can have para, but you can also have nir or dur, but you cannot have nis or dus. This was explained earlier. Nis tatha das ityatra sakarasya prarambhe ratvam anantaram bhavati ससजुषोरुः इत्यनेन तद् अस्य कृते असिद्धम् अस्ति। अतः अस्य सूत्रस्य कृते तु तत्र सकारः एव श्रूयते। The power of असिद्धत्वं starts right in the beginning. असिद्धत्वं तत्र सकारः एव श्रूयते। अतः अस्य सूत्रस्य विषये तत्र रेफस्य लकारादेशः न भवति। अग्रे गत्वा सकारस्य रेफादेशे ससजुषोरुः इत्यनेन कृते निर्रयित इति अत्र रूपं भवितुम् अर्हति। Then we enter the first of the important chunks, the Jhalipare Karyani, Padante and Jhalipare Karyani. The first one of them is Skoho Sanyogadyo Rantecha. Again, all these sutras have been studied. Sanyogaha yatra asti Padante, noche Jhalipare, yaha Sanyogaha asti, tatra Adivaranaha, Sanyogasya Adivaranaha, Sakaraha nochet Kakaraha asti chet, tatra Sakarasya nochet Kakarasya lopaha bhavati. So masja plus ta, there is a jhal letter in the beginning, there is a ja sanyoga present over here. This ja sanyoga that has a sakara in the beginning goes away. Majja agre prakriya purvam api asmabhi adhita magna iti siddhyati. Evamev takarasya ksha iti tatra ka tatha shra etayoho sanyoga asti. Ata taksha takshu tanu karne ityasmat dhatoho ta iti प्रत्यय विद्यते, क्त प्रत्यय विद्यते चेत् ककारस्य स्कोः संयोगाद्योरन्ते च इति लोपः तश प्लस् त तष्ट इति अन्तिमं रूपं सिद्ध्यति। अग्रे चोः कुः इति कुत्वं धातोः अन्ते च वर्गीयवर्णः च तथा ज इति विद्यते चेत् तत्र चकारस्य ककारादेशः जकारस्य गकारादेशः भवति। अन्यानि उदाहरणानि तु न सन्ति। छ इत्यस्य छ्वोः षूड् अनुनासिके च इत्यनेन अन्तिमः शकारादेशः छ्वोः षूड् अनुनासिके च तेन शकारादेशः अपि भवति। Now there is a set of dhatus. We have already discussed this, but let me quickly remind. Bhrasja, Sruja, Mruja. Also there is a Vrashcha dhatu. So we have this sutram. Vrasja, Bhrasja, Sruja, Mruja, Yaja, Raja, Bhraja. Etesham sarvesham vishaye. Atra choho kuhu ittenena praptam kutvam badhitva shaktvam bhavati. So Vrasja, Bhrasja is an apavada for choho kuhu. Choho kuhu gives a kutva for the normal set of Chavargiya Varnanta dhatus. Blocking that, a specific set of Chavargiya Varnanta dhatus. So Vrashcha, Bhrasja, Sruja, Mruja, Yaja, Raja, Bhraja. So all these dhatus which end in a letter of the Chavarga explicitly are given in the sutra Vrashja, Bhrasja and so on, where a Shakara Desha happens. Ataha Atra Vrashja, Bhrasja iti sutrena choho kuhu ittenena praptam kutvam badhitva shakara deshaha bhavati. And therefore, if you take all these dhatus, bhrasja, sruja, mruja, yaja, raja, bhraja, etesham sarvesham dhatunam vishaye atra shaha ittenena shatvam bhavati, shakara deshaha bhavati. The only exception, and a very weird exception present over here, vrascha इत्यस्य धातोः विषये किंचित् तत्र भिन्नं कार्यं भवति अनेन पुनरेकवारं प्रक्रियायां कुत्वम् एव तत्र भवितुम् अर्हति. So even though vrascha is present in this particular sutram, specifically for the nishtha prakriya only, something very weird happens for this vrascha dhatu, which if time permits I'll talk at the end of today's class, otherwise we'll talk in next week. But something very weird happens for this vrashcha dhatu, because of which this vrashcha bhrashcha sutra itself gets blocked, it itself becomes asiddha, and therefore choho kuhu will bring the kutvam over here. So somebody is asking over here, how can choho kuhu, which is 8 to 30, not block vrashja bhrashja, which is 8 to 36? The answer which I gave like 2 minutes ago, utsarga apavada relationship. Vrashja bhrashja is a specific sutram, it is an apavada of choho kuhu. Utsarga apavada relationship supersedes the tripadi order. So in tripadi, even if the apavada comes after the utsarga, the apavada will take precedence. Here, choho kuhu iti utsarga asti, kimartham asti, sarvesham cha vargiya varnanam no chet cha cha ja ityetesham sarvesham vishay atra kutvam pravartate. Asya apavadatvena sarve vishishtaha dhatavaha uktaha santi. Yaja, Raja, Mruja, Sruja. All other conditions are same. This is also Jhali Padante, this is also Jhali Padante. So if you decide to apply Choho Kuhu always for all these verbs, Sruja, Mruja, Yaja and so on, Vrashja Bhrashja Sutra will be completely useless. That Niravakashatvam is strong enough to make it Apavada. So Niravakashatvam Apavadasya Bijam. Because of that Niravakashatva, Choho Kuhu will be blocked and Vrashja Bhrashja will come. So for all these, there are some questions in the homework today related to this, the writing the prakriya. So for all these particular dhatus, we have this particular choho kuhu being blocked by vrashja bhrashja. We will talk about it 2 slides later. Tadanantaram asti hakarasya bhinnaha adeshaha ho dhaha dader dhator ghaha va dhruvamuhashnuhashniham naho dhaha sarvani api sutrani asmabhihi purveshu vargeshu adhitani atra udaharanani api dattani santi anantaram pathitum shakyante. So this is the vrashja bhrashja sutram that I was talking about. We will keep this vrashcha part aside and let's take a quick look at the remaining dhatus in this particular section. So vrashcha dhatoho vishaye idam sutram nishtha prakriyayam eva na pravartate anyatra sarvatra bhavitum arhati tatra tasya karanam agre uktamasti. Agre vidyamanaha dhatuhu bhrashja tatha तस्माद् अग्रे अत्र यज इति धातुः अस्ति. भ्रश्ज तथा यज एतयोः विषये किं भवति? प्रारम्भे सम्प्रसारणं भवति. वचिस्वपि यजादीनां किति and grahijyave tatra pृच्छति भृच्छति इति अस्ति. So for these two dhatus you get a samprasaranam. Once you get a samprasaranam, skoho sanyogadyorante cha ityanena praptam sakara lopam तथा च चोहो कुहु इत्यनेन प्राप्तम कुत्वम बाधते. कहा बाधते? व्रज भ्रज इति सूत्रम बाधते. So भ्रज यज, in both of these cases you get a shatva. Bhraj plus the samprasaranam first, then bhrusha plus the bhrushta, similarly ishta. So bhrushta and ishta are the final forms. Bhrasja, you get skoho sayogadyorante being blocked by vrasja bhrasja. Yaja, you get chohukuhu being blocked by vrasja bhrasja. The next two dhatus, sruja and bruja, they are written over here. Sruja tatha mruja ubhayoho vishaye chohukuhu ityanena praptam kutvam badhitva vrasja bhrasja ityanena shatvam bhavati. You can take a look at prakriya later on. Raja, bhraja, next two dhatus are actually very easy. They are it, set dhatus, etebhya vihitasya nishtha pratyasya idagamaha bhavati. So raja, bhraja, etayoho vihitayoho nishtha pratyasya idagamaha bhavati. Ajaditvat iti idam sutram na pravartate. Because there is an idagama, there is no jhaladi pratyaya. Therefore, atra idam sutram na pravartate. Chakaranta dhatunam vishaye, as I earlier mentioned, shvoho shudanunasike chiti shakaradesha bhavati. That is an angakarya, so you don't even get a chance to enter tripadi. Shakarasya vishayidam sutram na pravartate. Finally, shakarantasya udharanam, as soon as cha becomes sha, then you can land on this sutram. So when you have a cha by shvoho shudanunasike cha, it will first get converted to sha, and then you can land on this sutra, because this sutra has cha and sha, both of them. So shakarantasya udharanam pracha ityatra prusha iti shakarante adeshe krute agre prushta nochet asha ityatra shakarantah eva dhatu asti tatra shakarasya shakaradeshe krute ashta iti sarvam bhavitum arhati. All these I am speaking this with a bullet train speed. Unless you all work it out, this will never be. I mean, specifically when it comes to tripadi, there's so many karyas that you really have to sit down with a pen and paper and work it out once or twice, and then it will be thoroughly clear. There is a question over here. What happens to the sakara of bhrascha? I think skoho sayogadyorante should probably block sakara. I need to think about it. So bhrasja plus the, I think you are right. Probably skoho sayogadyorante will block sakara. There is no need to have apavada over here. So bhrasja, probably the sakara will go away, and then the ja will get converted to shakara. That's also I think acceptable. So bhrasja, the sa will go away. Bhraja plus the bhrusha plus the bhrushta. Let me actually check if something in this context, is written on the site. I might have completely forgot at this point. Ha, atra skoho sayogadyorante ityanena sakara lope krute tadanantaram shakaradesha bhavati. So I take my previous statement back. This is not apavada of skoho sayogadyorante. I'll fix this part of the slide. Skoho sayogadyorante ityanena prapte ityanena sakara lope krute tadanantaram atra shatvam bhavati. There are one or two more questions. I'll keep them aside. I'll talk about these later on. Let's go ahead. अग्रे अस्ति प्रत्यय तकारस्य धकारादेशः झषस्ततोर्धोधः यस्तनवर्गे अपि अस्य सूत्रस्य विषये चर्चा कृता तत्र प्रत्यय तकारस्य धकारादेशः भवति. अग्रे सर्वाणि सूत्राणि उदाहरणानि अत्र लिखितानि सन्ति. Remember all the discussion from yesterday's class, though the ghoho ityatra dadh iti dhakaraante adeshe krute api asya सूत्रस्य सन्निपात परिभाषा विरोधात् प्रसक्तिः नास्ति. अग्रे nishtha takarasya adesha. So this is the primary section that I now want to focus on going ahead. So till this time, all the sutras we had already studied somewhere, class number 25 or somewhere. Please go back and revisit that particular discussion. Asmat sutra, asmat vishayat agre arabhya अग्रे विद्यमानानि सूत्राणि किंचित सूक्ष्म रूपेण पश्यामः. अत्र विद्यमानानि अपि कानिचन सूत्राणि पूर्वं पाठितानि सन्ति, तथापि पुनरेकवारं विषयम् अनुसृत्य एतेषां विवरणं ददामि. तत्र निष्ठातकारस्य आदेशानां प्रायः 20 सूत्रेषु अत्र ग्रहणम् अत्र विवेचनं कृतम् अस्ति. एतेषां विषये प्राय विभागद्वयं कर्तुं शक्यते. प्रारंभिकेषु केषुचन सूत्रेषु निष्ठातकारस्य नकारादेशः उक्तः अस्ति. So there are around 8 or 9 sutras in which the ta, the takara of the nishtha pratyas is converted to nakara and some nipatanas associated with that. The second set of sutras, around 10-11 sutras are there. Tatra nishtatakarasya anya varne kashchana adeshah kritah asti. So as you can see, shushaha kaha. So the nishthatakara gets converted to ka, somewhere it gets converted to ma, somewhere it gets converted to va, and so on. So kasminshit anyasmin varne tasya adesha vidhanam kritam asti. No chet nishtatakarasya nakara adesha nishidhyate. So either the nakara adesha is blocked, or instead of nakara adesha, some other adesha has been given. So these are the two important segmentations. These are the two important groups that we can talk, or we can divide the sutras of the nishtha adesha. So this entire section of nishtha adesha, yellow colored one, we can divide it into two groups like this. Today we will be only focusing on the first group, nishtha takarasya nakara adesha. तत्रापि विद्यमानानि सर्वाणि सूत्राणि प्रायः अद्यतनवर्गे अस्माभिः न दृश्यन्ते. कानिचन सूत्राणि अद्य पठामः, कानिचन सूत्राणि अग्रिमसप्ताहे. तत्र प्रथमं सूत्रं निष्ठातकारस्य नकारादेशः. Some really important sutras, so please pay very close attention. One of the most important sutras, radabhyam nishthato naha purvasya cha daha. रेफदकाराभ्यां परस्य निष्ठातकारस्य नकारादेशः भवति, नः स्यात् निष्ठापेक्षया पूर्वस्य धातोः दकारस्य च. If there is a dakara present at the end of a dhatu, and if there is a nishthatakara directly present in front of it, no idagama, direct nishthatakara should be there. Asyam sthitau kim bhavati? Takarasya nakaradeshah bhavati, dakarasya api nakaradeshah bhavati. It is not an ekadesha. Both of them are not combining together to form a single nakara. Each of them individually becomes a nakara. Ubhayoho pruthak nakaradeshah bhavati. Dakarat paraha nishthatakaraha agacchati chet dakaratakarayoho ubhayoho pruthak nakaradeshah bhavati. Dida plus ta becomes na and ta becomes na. Takarottara akaraha tadrishah eva asti. So the vyanjana ta is becoming a vyanjana na, and the a is sitting over there. So da becomes na and ta becomes na. Bhinna iti rupam siddhyati. Da becomes na and ta becomes na. Chimna iti atra rupam siddhyati. That is about dakara. The sutra has two entities, radabhyam. Same thing happens when there is a rep instead of dakara. Rephat paraha nishthatakaraha agacchati chet takarasya nakaradeshah bhavati. So tru iti dhatuh asti, rutayit dhatoh itterena tir iti bhavati. Asya tir ityasya rephat parasya takarasya nakaradeshah bhavati. Tirna iti siddhyati. Important point to understand is that the dakara is also converted to nakara, but repha is not being converted to nakara because the second condition is only about the. Understand how to read this sutram. Radabhyam nishthatah naha. Radabhyam parasya nishtatakarasya nakaradeshah bhavati. A nishthatakara that comes after a repha or after a dakara becomes nakara. That is first rule. Second rule, purvasya cha daha. That na which has been converted, or that ta which has been converted to na, the dakara existing before it becomes nakara. So essentially for dakara both the clauses are applicable. So dakarat paraha nishthatakara agacchiti chet ubhayoho pruthak nakaradeshah. But for repha, it's only the first clause which is applicable. Rephat parasya nishtatakarasya nakaradesha. This second clause, purvasya, is not applicable for repha because it explicitly says purvasya cha daha. Atha rephat parasya rephat paraha nishthatakara agacchati chet kevalam takarasya eva nakaradesha. So through plus ta, tir plus ta, tir plus na, takarasya nakaradesha bhavati. तीर्ण अग्रे णत्वं तीर्ण इति भवति. एवमेव हूर्छ हूर् राल्लोपः इति रेफात् परस्य चकारस्य लोपः. हूर् प्लस् त हूर्ण इति अत्र पुनरेकवारं तकारस्य नकारादेशः भवति. Remember what we studied yesterday. दो दध्घोः इत्यत्र दद इति आदेशे कृते अपि सन्निपात परिभाषायाः विरोधात् इदं सूत्रं न प्रवर्तते. सो दद प्लस त इत्यत्र वस्तुतः रदाभ्यां निष्ठातो नः इत्यस्य प्रसक्तिः अस्ति, परन्तु दद प्लस त इत्यत्र तकारस्य नकारादेशः क्रियते चेत् तत्र सन्निपात परिभाषायाः विरोधः तत्र जायते. अतः सन्निपात परिभाषाम् अनुसृत्य एतादृशः आदेशः न भवति. Now somebody is asking, if you don't do the to na, if you keep this the as it is, then it will be bhida plus na, and we will also get bhinna because of yaronunasiko nunasike va. So let's take a look at yaronunasiko. I think it has padasya, if I'm not mistaken. Yaronunasiko nunasike va. Padante vidyamanasya yarvarnasya. So it has an anuvritti of padasya. So this is about padante vidyamanasya yarvarnasya. And again, that was optional. Yaro nunasiko nunasike va. So there was no, I mean, it would have, I mean, assuming this was hypothetically a pada, it could have caused bhidna as a valid form, and bhidna is not a valid form. So first that sutra is not applicable, and moreover, even if it was hypothetically applicable, it was not sufficient. अतः अत्र तस्य सूत्रस्य प्रयोगः न भवति. अग्रे गच्छामः, सूत्रस्य व्याख्यां पश्यामः. रदाभ्यां निष्ठातो नः पूर्वस्य च दः, रेफ दकाराभ्याम् उत्तरस्य निष्ठातकारस्य नकारः आदेशः भवति पूर्वस्य च दकारस्य. कानिचन उदाहरणानि दीयन्ते, पूर्वमेव अस्माभिः इदानीं दृष्टानि. रेफान्तात् तावत् आस्तीर्णं, विस्तीर्णं, विशीर्णं, निगीर्णं, अवगूर्णं, and so on. Some of these we have seen on the previous slide. Dakarat, bhinnaha, bhinnavan, chinnaha, chinnaha, chinnavan, and so on. Radabhyam iti kim tatra repha avashakaha, rukaraha tatra nanumanyate. So he explicitly gives the example of rukara out and not, or out of everybody else. He gives the example of rukara. Understand, over here when he says radabhyam nishthato naha, it is the actual standalone Vyanjana Repha. Go back multiple slides and we had Kruporo Laha. In this particular Kruporo Laha, of course, Kaumudi gives a certain specific cheda to allow the Rukara over there, but in general, the R over here is Shruti Samanyam. It indicates the Repha as well as Rukara. So the similar sounding R in one sutram talks about Repha and Rukara. There are different ways to justify that over here. We'll not go in that particular discussion. But in Kruporo there is no Rukara present. There is Rukara present. Rukara is being included over there. In the current sutra, Radabhyam Nishthato Naha, it is only Repha. Rukara is not there. So he explicitly gives example of Krutaha and Krutavan. Giving counter examples is also an art. Makes it clear. Raha iti ra shruti samanyam na upadiyate tarhi kim vyanjana matram. And then he says Repha samanya nirdeshe api sati. So even if you say it is a samanya and take a full ra, for example, ra followed by an a, Rephat paraya ajbhaktihi tad vyavadhanat natvam na bhavati. So it has to be a standalone ra, and then it has to be ta. You cannot have any other entity, not even a swara or not any, nothing else should be there in between. So ajvyavadhanam asti chet tatra natvam na bhavati. निष्ठा इति किम कर्ता हर्ता कृ धातोः कर इति तत्र आदेशः भवति, परन्तु अग्रे तृच् प्रत्ययः अस्ति, निष्ठा नास्ति, अतः तत्र नकारादेशः न भवति. तः इति किम चरितं मुदितं. सो चर मुद इत्यत्र सर्वत्र रेफान्त धातु अस्ति, दकारान्त धातु अस्ति, परन्तु झलि कार्यं तत्र तकारः अग्रे नास्ति. नॉट जल, तकारः अग्रे नास्ति, इडागमः तत्र मध्ये आगच्छति. अतः तः इति किम चरितं मुदितं. Purvasya iti kim, purvasya cha daha. The dakara which is present before that nakara is the one that is being transformed. Dakara which is present after that nakara is not being transformed. So parasya mabhut bhinnavadbhyam bhinnavadbhi ityeteshu shabdeshu tatra nakara dvayam vidyate. There is dakara dvayam vidyate. There is a dakara in bhida and there is a dakara in bhinnavadbhyam. So only the previous dakara is getting converted to nakara, not the dakara that appears later on. So भिन्नवद्भ्याम भिन्नवद्भि इति तत्र उदाहरणानि. We'll keep this next statement aside for a minute. I'll talk about it. रेफदकाराभ्याम परस्य निष्ठा तस्य नः स्यात् निष्ठापेक्षया पूर्वस्य धातोः दकारस्य च श्रु इत्यस्य धातोः उदाहरणं तत्र दीयते. ऋत इत्यनेन प्रथमम् इकारादेशः भवति शिर् इति. रपरः उरण्रपरः णत्वं शीर्ण. So one word wraps up the prakriya. शीर्ण. The next interesting statement, बहिरंगत्वेन वृद्धेः असिद्धत्वात् न इह कृतस्यापत्यं कार्तिः. Here also in Kashika he makes the same point. इह कृतस्यापत्यं कार्तिः इति वृद्धेः बहिरंगलक्षणायाः सिद्धत्वात् नत्वे कर्तव्ये रेफस्य असिद्धत्वम्. Let's understand this. It's fun to understand this particular statement. Nice mix of a tadhita pratyaya and a krut pratyaya. So it all starts with a tadhita vritti called krutasya apatyam. Let's understand the problem first, and then most of you will immediately get the solution. So krutasya apatyam iti atra vakyam asti. Some person called kruta or whatever, somebody who has done something great, we call him kruta tasya apatyam. Idanim atra prakriti pratyaya vibhaga katham bhavati. So a typical rule in grammar is that when you have a sentence, you actually dissect the whole sentence. So basically, Ramah pathati iti vakyam svikritya tatra prakriti pratyaya vibhagam krutva tatra agre prakriya karaniya. It is okay for student exercise to have their derivation of Rama separate and derivation of pathati separate, but that's not how the derivation happens. Derivation happens as a complete full sentence being broken down into prakriti pratyaya. This is called vakya anvakhyana paksha. So basically grammar has two important pakshas. There is a padanvakhyana paksha in which we can treat each padas as separate, and there is a vakyanvakhyana paksha in which an entire sentence is treated as an homogeneous entity and broken down into prakriti and pratyaya. A generally accepted paksha in vyakaranam is vakyanvakhyana paksha. So according to this paksha, we take the full sentence called krutasya apatyam and break it down. There is a kru dhatu, there is a kta pratyaya, because that is how the kruta word is created, and then there is an iya which is tadhita pratyaya. Ata iya ityanena tasya apatyam ityasmin arthe iya iti pratyayah diyate. Iya ityasya samnya lopah bhavati kru plus ta plus e. Now see what is happening at this point. This rukara, so what is the anga of e? The anga of e is the entire kru plus ta. Yasmat pratyavidhis tadadi pratyaye angam. So anga of e is kru plus ta. The first swara in this particular anga is rukara. It is not the first place, but it is the first swara. Before that there are only vyanjanas. So the first swara is rukara. Whenever a tadhita pratyaya is applied to a word, if the tadhita pratyaya contains an yakara or an akara or a kakara, the first swara undergoes a vruddhi. That's the only prakriya in the tadhita prakaranam. That and yasya teacher, both of these you can see over here. So in tadhita prakaranam, prakriyas are extremely simple. You have tadhiteshvacha madehe and kiticha and yasya teacher. Only 3 or 4 sutras are there. So by tadhiteshvacha madehe, the rukara gets converted to ar. Urendrapara iti tatra repha agacchati. Rukarasya vruddhi akaraha tatra repha agacchati. So you have kara plus ta plus e. Ta is full over there. At this particular time, you get yasya teacher, takarottarasya akarasya lopaha bhavati. You don't need to know all these sutras, just believe what I'm saying. So takarottarasya akarasya lopaha bhavati ta plus e. So we have a configuration kar, ta, e, and now both Kashika and Kaumudi are asking you to concentrate on this particular form, and they ask a question. Look at this form. In this form, there is a repha. Rephat paraha tatra nishtha pratyasya takaraha asti, because this ta is originated from the kta pratyaya. So nishtha pratyasya takaraha asti. Radabhyam nishthato naha ityanena takarasya avashyam atra nakaradeshah bhavet ataha karani iti atra rupam bhavet nahi karti. Rephat tarhi tatra tadrusham kimartham na bhavati. Rephat parasya tishtatakarasya natvam kimartham na bhavati iti prashna. Now obviously many of you will immediately understand this, that this has to do something with antaranga and bahiranga. This kara plus ta is an antaranga entity on its own. Or speaking more precisely, radabhyam nishthato naha is an antaranga karya because it only depends on kara plus kta, whereas this vruddhi, kru becoming kara, this particular vruddhi is due to an comparatively external entity called iya. So iya is an external entity. It is farther than the internal structure called kru and ta. So radabhyam nishthato naha purvasya chadaha, even if it is in the tripadi, it is still an antaranga karya. The vruddhi is a bahiranga karya. Therefore, a bahiranga karya by the paribhasha asiddham bahirangam antarange, a bahiranga karya is asiddha, is not seen by the antaranga karya. So when the antaranga karya radabhyam nishthato naha over here comes and tries to operate, it does not see the vruddhi that is caused by the bahiranga karya, and therefore it cannot understand that there is a rape over here. It still continues to believe that there is a kr over here, and therefore there is no question of conversion of ta to na. रेफात् परस्य निष्ठातकारस्य णत्वं किमर्थं न भवति इति प्रश्नः. अस्य उत्तरमिदं ऋकारस्य जायमानः वृद्ध्यादेशः बहिरङ्गकार्यम् अस्ति. किमर्थं बहिरङ्गं कार्यम् अस्ति? तस्य निमित्तं किञ्चित् बहिः विद्यते. कः तस्य किं तस्य निमित्तं? तद्धितसंज्ञकः इय प्रत्ययः तस्य निमित्तम्. अस्य अपेक्षया तकारस्य जायमानः नकारादेशः अन्तरङ्गकार्यम् अस्ति. किमर्थम् अन्तरङ्गकार्यम् अस्ति? तस्य निमित्तं केवलं क्रू तथा त इति सीमितम् अस्ति. अस्यां स्थितौ असिद्धं बहिरङ्गम् अन्तरङ्गे अनया परिभाषया बहिरङ्गं कार्यम् अन्तरङ्गकार्यं प्रति असिद्धं ज्ञेयम् इत्युक्ते अत्र वृद्धि आदेशः नत्व विधायकेन इत्युक्ते रदाभ्यां निष्ठातो नः इति सूत्रेण न दृश्यते, अतः अत्र नत्वम् अपि न संभवति. That's exactly what is written in Kashika and Kaumudi. Now it will be easy to understand this line. Iha कृतस्य अपत्यं कार्तिः इति वृद्धेः बहिरङ्गलक्षणायाः असिद्धत्वात्. The वृद्धि is bahiranga, therefore it is asiddha. वृद्धेः बहिरङ्गलक्षणायाः असिद्धत्वात् नत्वे कर्तव्ये रेफस्य असिद्धत्वम्. बहिरङ्गत्वेन, I am reading Kaumudi here, बहिरङ्गत्वेन वृद्धेः असिद्धत्वात् न इह कृतस्य अपत्यं कार्तिः. अतः अनेन प्रकारेण अत्र असिद्धं बहिरङ्गम् अन्तरङ्गे इत्यस्याः परिभाषायाः साहाय्यं स्वीकृत्य अत्र दताभ्यां निष्ठातो नः इत्यस्य प्रयोगः न भवति इति स्पष्टीभवति. And then भिन्न चिह्न examples for the dakara are being given. Let's take the next sutram. A lot of discussion is there after these two sutras. So first one that we saw over here is radabhyam nishthato naha purvasya chadaha. The second sutram that we want to see, just give me 1 minute. Okay, the second sutram that we want to see is sanyogadehe ato dhator yanvataha. Again, simple sutram. We have studied this earlier. Let's take a look at it again. Sanyogadehe ato ataha. There is no visarga over here. Sanyogadehe ataha dhato yanvataha. What is written in this particular sutram? This is another sutram where the nishtha takarasya nakara desha bhavati. Purvam ekam sutram asmavi idanim drishtam radabhyam nishthato naha purvasya chadaha. Idanim aparam kinchana sutram asmavi pathyate. Lots of conditions. Let's read it carefully. Sanyogadehe, clause number 1. There should be sanyoga in the beginning. Ataha, ante tatra akaraha vidyate. So case number whatever, clause number 1, condition number 1, sanyoga must be in the beginning. Clause number 2, akara must be at the end. Yanvataha ityukte yanvan. Yan asmin asti iti yanvat, noted yanvan. So there should be yana letter somewhere. So 3 conditions are given. There must be sanyoga in the beginning, there must be akara at the end, and there must be yana letter somewhere in the middle. It may be somewhere, it may be in the beginning, maybe in the end, maybe in the middle, somewhere there must be yana letter. So yasmin dhatau adau sanyogaha vidyate, ante akaraha vidyate, तथा च कुत्रचित् यणवर्णः विद्यते, तस्मात् हि तस्य निष्ठातकारस्य नकारादेशः भवति. सो स्त्यै इति धातुः तत्र प्रारंभिक सोपाने एव आदेशोपदेशे शिति इति आकारादेशे कृते स्त्या इति भवति. इदानीं प्रारंभे संयोगः अस्ति स प्लस् त प्लस् य इति संयोगः, अन्ते आकारः अस्ति, मध्ये कुत्रचित् मध्ये भवतु उत प्रारंभे भवतु कुत्रचित् यणवर्णः अस्ति य इति अस्ति, अस्यां स्थितौ सो ऑल थ्री कंडीशंस आर सैटिस्फाइड, अस्यां स्थितौ तकारस्य प्रत्ययतकारस्य नकारादेशः भवति, सो स्या प्लस् त स्त्यान। अनदर एग्जांपल द्रा इति धातुः, तत्र प्रारंभे संयोगः अस्ति दकार रेफयोः संयोगः, तदनन्तरम् अन्ते आकारः अस्ति, कुत्रचित् रेफः विद्यते, द्रा प्लस् त बिकम्स द्रान एंड द्राण। ग्लै इति अस्ति, ग्लै इत्यस्य ग्ला इति आदेशः भवति, प्रारंभे संयोगः गकार लकारयोः संयोगः, अन्ते आकारः, कुत्रचित् यणवर्णः लकारः, सर्वाणि तत्र सर्वे नियमाः अत्र सन्ति, अतः ग्ला प्लस् त ग्लान इति सिद्ध्यति। That's it. Nothing about this sutram unless we go till we go to the next slide. So sanyogadihi yah dhatuhu akarantah yanvan. See how the dhatu is being described. Sanyogadihi akarantah yanvan. Tasmad uttarasya nishtha-takarasya nakaradeshah bhavati. Pradranah. This is dranah. Pradranah. Pradranavan. Mlanaha. Mlanavan. Sanyogadehe iti kim? Yataha. So when you want to do the dalakrutyam, only one clause should be violated. Everything else should be satisfied. So yat ityatra akarantaha dhatu asti, yanvan asti, parantu sanyogah nasti, atra natvam na bhavati, atha sanyogadehe iti kim? Yataha. Ataha iti kim? Shu iti dhatuः अस्ति, संयोगादिः अस्ति, यणवान् अस्ति, परन्तु आकारान्तः नास्ति, अत्रापि न भवति। धातोः इति किं? Look at this. संयोगादेः आतः धातोः. Why धातोः? Because all these conditions must be in the dhatu. The yana letter cannot come from the upasarga. So dhatoho iti kim, or say some other letter of the sanyoga cannot come from the upasarga. Niryataha. अत्र संयोगस्य रेफः, संयोगे विद्यमानः रेफ, तत्र रेफयकारयोः संयोगः, तस्य संयोगस्य रेफः धातौ नास्ति, उपसर्गात् आगच्छति. That's not acceptable. Everything must be in the dhatu. So धातोः इति किं? निर्यातः, निर्वातः अत्र न भवति. And finally यणवान्. यणवतः इति किं? स्ना धातुं स्वीकुर्मश्चेत् तत्र संयोगः अस्ति, आकारान्तः धातुः अस्ति, परन्तु तत्र यण वर्णः नास्ति, अतः अत्रापि नत्वं न भवति। निष्ठा तस्य नः स्यात्, द्राणः, स्त्यानः, ग्लानः, मानः, भिन्नानि उदाहरणानि अत्र दत्तानि सन्ति. So these particular, even the previous one, radabhyam nishthato na purvasya chada, this one sanyogaderatah dhator yanvatah, all these are very good exercises for dalakrutyam. I don't have dalakrutyam in the exercises today, but very useful exercises for trying out the dalakrutyam, which will help you understand the sutra in this entire with all its entire scenario, all corner cases. किंचित् निषेधस्य विषये पश्यामः. So there are these two sutras that we discussed right now. रदाभ्यां निष्ठातो नः पूर्वस्य च दः, तथा च संयोगादेः आतः धात्. You can either say आतः or आतो. There is no आतो हो. There is a mistake on the slide. संयोगादेरातो धातोर् यणवतः. एतयोः द्वयोः सूत्रयोः अग्रे केचन अपवादाः उक्ताः सन्ति. So not right here, but if you go a little bit below, somewhere over here, nadhyakhya pru murchimadam, vitto bhoga pratyayoho, vittam shakalam. So all these are nishtha takarasya nakaradeshasya nishedha. Let's take a look at all these three sutras and then we will go back in the original sequence talking about lvadebhyah and oditascha. So atra tatra prathamaha nishedha na dhyakhya pru murchimadam. Simple sutram, unless again we go to the next slide. There are a bunch of dhatus present over there. Etesham vishaye nishtha-takarasya nakaradeshah na bhavati iti atra ashayah. What all dhatus? You have dhya. So dhyai chintayam iti dhatuhu. You have kya. Kya prakathane iti adadiganasya dhatuhu. These two dhatus are sanyogadi dhatus, akaranta dhatus, and yanvantau dhatus. Both of them have a yana letter in them. So by संयोगादेरातो धातोर्यणवतः, we should be getting the nishtha takarasya nakaradeshah, that is being blocked. ध्ययी चिंतायां ख्या प्रकथने एतयोः धात्वोः विहितस्य निष्ठा तकारस्य संयोगादे रातः, all these places are typing mistake, संयोगादे रातः धातोर्यणवतः इत्यनेन प्राप्तः नकारादेशः न भवति. So ध्ययी आदेश उपदेशे शिति makes it dhya, dhya plus kta you get dhyat, ख्या plus kta you get khyat. So these are the correct forms. Dhyana is not a kta pratyayanta form. Most of you, I hope, already know it. It looks very similar, and because we are talking about nishtha takarasya nakaradesha, it looks absolutely similar to this. So dhyana is a lut pratyayanta form. I think dhya plus ana will give you dhyana. Nothing to do with the nishtha pratyayanta form. The remaining dhatus in this particular sutram are blocking the radabhyam nishthato naha purvasya chadaha. So you have pru, which will essentially become pura. So there is a repha coming over there. Murcha, so it will essentially become mura because rallopaha will get rid of cha. So again there is a repha coming over there. And madda, there is a da coming over there. So for these dhatus pru, murcha and madda, either the repha or the dakara is coming in the picture, so it will block radabhyam nishthato naha purvasya chadaha. अतः प्रूपालन पोष पूरणयोः मूर्छा मोह समुच्चाययोः तथा च मदी हर्षग्लेपनयोः मदी हर्षे ग्लेपने च द्वयोः अप्यत्र ग्रहणम्. एतेभ्यः विहितस्य निष्ठातकारस्य केन सूत्रेण नकारादेशः तत्र प्राप्यते? रदाभ्याम निष्ठातो नः इत्यनेन प्राप्तः नकारादेशः अत्र न भवति. So pru becomes pura, pura plus kta, पूर्त अत्र तकारस्य नकारादेशः न भवति. मूर्त तकारस्य नकारादेशः न भवति. मत्त अत्रापि दकारस्य नो चेत् तकारस्य नकारादेशः न भवति. So basically a single sutra that lists 5 dhatus, 2 of them are apavada for sanyogade ratoh ratah dhatoryanvatah, and 3 of them are apavadas for radabhyam nishthato na purvasya chadaha. ध्याख्या प्रू मूर्छि मद इत्येतेषां निष्ठातकारस्य नकारादेशो न भवति. ध्यातः ख्यातः पूर्तः मूर्तः मत्तः रदाभ्याम नोचित संयोगादेः इति च प्राप्तः प्रतिषिध्यते. Commentaries, by this time you should be able to read and understand on your own. एभ्यः निष्ठातस्य नत्वं न ध्यातः ख्यातः पूर्तः राल्लोपः. Specifically when it comes to Kaumudi, you have to read between the lines. Rallopaha is talking about murcha over here. Murtaha mattaha, the last line over here. So this is the basic description of Nadhyakhya Pru Murchi Madam. Before we go to the next sutram, let's talk some interesting shastra over here. Let's look at this dhatu, kya dhatu, kya prakathane adadhi. Let's go to the dhatu patha and take a look at this particular dhatu. So let's go to the dhatu patha. Oh, it's opened over here, saving time. Look at this, kya prakathane iti adadi ganasya dhatuhu. Let's look at this particular note that is written. Vastutaha kya dhatoho ardha dhatuka pratyeye pare rupani na santi iti siddhanta kaumudyam dikshitaha spashti karoti. At some point in Siddhanta Kaumudi, Bhattoji Dikshita has said that for the verb kya, there are no forms for ardha dhatuka pratyayas. For sarva dhatuka pratyayas like khyati, khyata, khyanti, you get the forms. But ardha dhatuka pratyayas, you don't have any forms, or specifically ardha dhatuka pratyayas are not seen attached to the kya dhatu. There is no Panini rule to block it. He's basically saying prayogas don't show that particular variation or that particular combination. Prayoge na drishyante ata anabhidhanat atra ardha dhatuka pratyayaha kya dhatoho na bhavanti. Now coming to the current context, ta is an ardha dhatuka pratyaya, and therefore there is no reason to have the ta pratyaya added to kya dhatu, and therefore kya grahanam अस्मिन् सूत्रे व्यर्थम अस्ति इति बाल मनोरमायाम उक्तम अस्ति. Surprisingly, no other commentaries talk about it. probably the reason is that, as you can see over here, parantu kechana panditaha tani api rupani pathanti. Some experts say that kya dhatu can get ardha dhatuka pratyayas, and therefore there is a difference of opinion. In Bala Manorama, it is clearly written that this kya grahanam asmin sutre prahayaha vyartham asti. But that's only a half of the story. That's not the full story. Why? Because if you go to this nishtha prakaranam, all the steps, we should not forget the previous steps when we go to the next steps. So when we go to this krut prakriya pratyay vivakshayam dhatu parivartanam, there is a very interesting sutram over here. Chakshingaha khyaya. Chakshing dhatoho ardha dhatuka pratyasya vivakshayam khyaya iti adeshaha bhavati. So you have two khyaya dhatus at this stage. You have a kya dhatu which is given in the aupadeshika form as kya in the dhatu patha, and you have a chakshing dhatu when in presence of an ardha dhatuka pratyaya, this chakshing gets converted to kya. So you have two kya dhatus, and we are only saying that the first kya dhatu which is directly present in the dhatu patha, that kya dhatu does not get ardha dhatuka pratyayas. Nobody is saying anything about this particular dhatu, because if chakshing dhatu is not going to get ardha dhatuka pratyayas, then conversion of chakshing to kya in ardha dhatuka adhikara itself becomes useless. Chakshing ityasya dhatoho. So there is a separate chakshing dhatu. Let's actually take a look at Chakshing yaktayam vachi. This is 2.7. Adadiganaseva dhatu asti. Chakshing iti dhatu asti. Asya dhatoho ardha dhatuka pratyay vivakshayam atra khyaya iti adesho. So ardha dhatuka lakaranam vishay. Not just lakara. This is lakara page, so I have written lakara. But basically ardha dhatuka pratyanam vishay. Chakshingaha khyaya ityanena atra khyaya iti adeshaha bhavati. So understand, we have two dhatus called khyaya. There is a ready-made khyaya dhatu for which the ardha dhatuka pratyayas are not applicable according to Siddhanta Kaumudi and a few experts. Whereas for the second khyaya dhatu, which is obtained from chakshing in presence of ardha dhatuka pratyaya or in the vivaksha of ardha dhatuka pratyaya, that kya dhatu is still there. And that definitely gets ardha dhatuka pratyayas because it is that ardha dhatuka vivaksha which is converting chakshing to khyaya. अतः आर्ध धातुक प्रत्ययस्य विवक्षायां चक्षिं धातुः ख्याय आदेशे कृते पुनः अग्रे आर्ध धातुक प्रत्ययः न भवति इति दोषाय एव वचनं तादृशं न वक्तव्यम्. So for that particular khyaya which is obtained from chakshing, it might make sense to have kya in this particular sutram. So understand this point carefully. The kya which is given ready-made in the dhatu patha, you don't need the kya over here in this particular sutram if we follow the paksha of Bhattoji Dikshita in Siddhanta Kaumudi. But if you have at the same time, I mean, if you have another dhatu chakshing being converted to kya, for that particular dhatu, maybe this sutra is needed. Having said that, let's understand a little bit more about this chakshing dhatu. So chakshing ityasya dhatoho kim bhavatoho vishay kim bhavati. Again, this has been taught a few classes ago when we learned Nadatva Prakaranam. A lot of things have been taught in the course. I'm repeating it, but a lot of things have already been taught. So ardha dhatuke ityasmin adhikare chakshingaha khyaya iti yat sutram vidyate asya sutre anena sutrena chakshing dhatoho kaha adeshaha bhavati. So you get a khyaya or a kshaya, either of the adeshas. So that's also written over here. Chakshing dhatoho khyaya or kshaya. So kshadihi api ayam adeshaha vidyate or uchyate vakshate is what the statement in Kashika in this context. So chakshing dhatoho khyaya iti adeshaha, note kshaya iti adeshaha bhavati. This particular conversion of chakshing to khyaya is not that simple. It happens in a slightly complicated process. It's a two-step process, and that two-step process adds some interesting flavor to the current discussion. Let's understand. You have a chakshing dhatu. In the first step, Please pay close attention. In the first step, chakshin gets converted to kshaya. Letters are all looking similar, don't get confused. Our final product is khyaya or kshaya. This is our final product. We are not there yet. In the first step, chakshin is getting converted to kshaya. There is a kh over here. So this kh, but then there is a sh over here. So this sh. So some hybrid form is being created in between. So what commentaries tell us is that in the first step, chakshin is getting converted to kh, sh, a, y, tongue twister, kshaya. Then there is a vartikam that is applied, kshayah, shasya, yahava. In this particular format, there is a vartika which optionally converts the shakara to yakara. So we start with chakshin. Chakshin becomes a kshaya, and then a vartikam optionally converts sh to ya. In one stream, it gives khyaya, which is what one of our forms is. How is that form obtained? Sh is getting converted to ya optionally by this particular vartikam. Kshayaha, shasya, shakarasya, yaha, yakaradesha, vikalpena bhavati. So sh becomes ya. In the other pathway, the kshaya remains as it is, and kharicha will act, chartva will happen, kha will get converted to ka. That's how our two forms are created, kshaya and khyaya. Now the interesting thing over here is that this particular vartikam has been placed in tripadi after the ranatva prakaranam. So ranatva prakaranam rashabhyam nona samana pade starts from 841, goes all the way up to kshubnadishu cha 8439. After that particular ranatva prakaranam, this particular vartika is placed. Understand this again. The initial conversion happens all the way in the beginning of the prakriya in the ardhadhatuka pratyaya vivaksha. But the whatever you have obtained, kshaya, this intermediate form, it stays all the way like that till end of the prakriya. When we go to 8.4, when we complete the anatva prakaranam, after that this particular transformation happens. And therefore, when we are trying to apply the current sutram, radabhyam nishthato naha purvasya chadaha, or संयोगादेः धातोः यण्वतः, संयोगादेः आतः धातोः यण्वतः. So when we are trying to apply either of these sutras or any sutras that convert a nishtha takara to nakara, the sutras that convert nishtha takara to nakara see this intermediate form. They don't see this in final form because this final form is not yet derived. It will be derived all the way after 8.4. We are still in 8.2, and therefore we will only see this intermediate form. Now in this intermediate form, there is a sanyoga in the beginning, there is a akara at the end, but there is no yana letter. So संयोगादेः आतो धातः संयोगादेः रातः धातोर् यण्वत इत्यस्य सूत्रस्य अत्र प्रसक्तिः एव नास्ति. If you consider the direct final form called khyaya, then there is a problem. You have a yana letter and you have a sanyoga and you have a akara, so there is a prasakti and therefore you might want to block it. But what is actually happening? You are only seeing the form which has a kha. There is no ya or any other yana letter. At this particular stage, when sanyogade sutram acts, it does not get a chance to act over here because there is no yana letter, and therefore there is no prasakti of nishthanatvam. When there is no prasakti, kim tatra pratishedhena prayojanam kim pratishedhasya. So understand this one last time. We have two different kya dhatus. One of them which is directly present in the dhatu patha, according to Siddhanta Kaumudi, it does not get ardha dhatuka pratyayas. Fair enough, gone. The second kya dhatu, which is obtained from chakshin, for that particular dhatu, when we say kya asmad vihitasya nishtha takarasya sanyogade rato atah dhato yanvata ityanena nakaradesha prapnoti, that itself argument is questionable. Why is this questionable? Because the version of the kya dhatu which is seen by Sanyogade Sutram is not kya, but it is ksha. At this particular point, there is no yana letter, and therefore this particular sutram is not applicable. If nakaradesha is not applicable, nishedha is also not applicable. And therefore, for either of the two dhatus, there is no point in having kya in this particular sutram. That's exactly what Bala Manorama points out. Let's take a quick look at the commentary. Khyata iti. So he tries to discuss what kya is. Khyaya desha pakshe yanvatvat sanyogade rataha iti praptam natvam na. Initially itself you do not get a natva. ख्यादेशस्य शस्य यत्वे तु णत्व प्रकरणागतस्य asiddhatvat. So that particular vartika sits in the natva prakaranam. It is asiddha at this particular stage 8 to 57, and therefore yanavatva bhava. There is no yanavata situation over here. So sanyogade rataha iti natvasya na prasaktihi. So that basically takes care of a kya which is obtained from chakshing. What about the standalone ready-made kya in the dhatu patha? Swataha siddha kya dhatoho tu ardha dhatuke prayogaha nasti. The standalone kya dhatu does not have a prayoga in the ardha dhatuka case, and therefore kya granam vyarthameva. The kya inclusion in this particular sutram is completely useless. Having said all this, please understand this is not being discussed in Mahabhashyam, this is not being discussed in Kaumudi, this is not being discussed in Kashika, this is being discussed in Bala Manorama, and therefore it has to be taken with a pinch of salt. It has to be taken as one scholar's opinion or an opinion of a few scholars rather than taking it as a siddhanta. So Bhashyakara does not comment on this sutram. Bhashyakara does not reject the existence of kya, possibly because, as we mentioned, maybe there are some scholars who agree to the fact that there is the standalone kya dhatu and there could be ardha dhatuka pratyas attached to it. So either way, all this shastra charcha I just wanted to bring on the table. Atra sutre tu kya iti asti, tasya prayojanam api atra asmabhi drishtam, vastutah tatra kya iti shabdah iti grahanam avashyakam uta na अस्मिन् विषये तत्र किञ्चित् शास्त्र चर्चा अपि अस्माभिः दृष्टा. अग्रे गच्छामः. So that is all about this particular single sutram na dhya kya pru murchi madam. Chakshing dhatoh विषये अपि अत्र अस्माभिः दृष्टम्. अग्रे गच्छामः. The second sutram in that particular list. Here na dhya kya pru murchi madam. The next sutram with bhoga pratyayoho. The next two sutras are actually nipatanas. Very simple. They directly give you the words vitta and bhitta. Vitto bhoga pratyayoho bhittam shakalam. So vitto bhoga pratyayoho vida labhe tudadiganasya dhatuhu asti. Vitta iti videhe labharthat uttarasya ktasya natva abhava nipatyate. So vida plus the radabhyam nishtatonaha will make a nakara over there. The final form will be vinna, but specific meanings bhoga and pratyaya. I'll explain what it is. But in this specific context of bhoga and pratyaya, we do not want the nakara desha to happen. Kasya nakara desha nishuddhyate? Ubhayoho nakara desha nishuddhyate. Dakarasya api nakara desha na bhavati. Takarasya api nakaradesha na bhavati. Finally, you get the form as vittam. So vida plus ta, in some specific meanings, we get the word vitta. Very well known word actually. Dhanam ityukte vittam iti vadamaha. That's exactly what is being derived over here by the nipatana. In which meanings? Bhoga. Bhoga. So these are like indicator meanings. Bhoga essentially means enjoyment. Bhoga essentially means ability to use money to take luxuries and so on. And therefore, when you say the context of bhoga, it is actually representing the dhanam. So these are all not clear or straightforward meanings, but these are the pointers. That's what he explains over here. Bhoge pratyayech abhidheye. These are the two meanings, bhoga and pratyaya. Dhanam hi bhujyate iti bhogaha abhidhiyate. So when you are enjoying, say, good food or good clothes or good company or whatever, it's essentially being brought by the dhana. So at the end of the day, it's the dhana that you are enjoying. So dhanam hi bhujyate iti bhogaha abhidhiyate. So dhana ityasya visheshana rupena vittam iti shabdaha prayujyate. Vittam asya bahu, wealthy person. Dhanam asya bahu iti arthaha. So vitta iti videhe labharthaduttarasya ta pratyasya natva abhavaha nipatyate. Bhoge abhidheye. And second is pratyaya, knowledge, wisdom iti arthaha. Pratyaye vittaha ayam manusha. So pratyasya ki udaharanam vittaha, jnani, wise, ayam manusha. Again, pratiyate, who has realized not necessarily the ultimate Brahman, realized the subject matter or realized the situation, realized the topic that he is skilled at or whatever. So pratiyate iti pratyayaha. Pratitaha, skilled person, knowledgeable person, wise person. Jnani ityasmin arte vittaha iti shabdaha prayujyate. So both of them, for example, pratyaya does not mean krut pratyaya and tadhita pratyaya. Bhoga does not directly mean bhoga. Bhoga word over here is used to indicate dhanam. Pratyaya is used to indicate a wise or a knowledgeable person. So Devadatta vittam ityukte bhogyam or dhanam bahu asti. Devadattaha vittaha ityukte jnani purushah asti. Etadrishaha prayogaha atra bhavanti. Vidantehe nishtha tasya nipataha ayam. So straight away nipata has been given. Bhogye pratite cha arthe vittam dhanam vittaha purushaha. Anayoho kim. Why in these two cases? Vinna anyatra sarvatra vinna iti eva atra bhavati. Vibhasha gamahana iti kvasau vetvat iha na it. So vida dhatu in dhatu patha is actually set dhatu. However, by the sutra vibhasha gamahana jana visham, so I think kwasu pratyaya, for kwasu pratyaya idagama has been blocked because the kwasu pratyaya, optional, is made optional. So for kwasu pratyaya idagama is made optional, and therefore yasya vibhasha will block it for the nishtha pratyaya, and therefore atra it na bhavati. I think we have seen this sutram in the Angakarya Prakaranam, vibhasha, somewhere here, the idagama step. Let me just point it out. Here, vibhasha gama ana vida visham. Vasu pratyasya vaikalpikaha idagamaha nisthayam in nishedhaha atra vida labhe ityasya vitta vinna iti udaharanam api dattam asti. So somebody is pointing a very famous usage, vittam tena vinodaya chittam mohamadgaraha bhaja govindam ityatra ayam prayogaha drishyate. So that's the dhanam. Okay, agre gachhamaha. So that's the second sutram in the list. The third is bhittam shakalam. Where did the list go? So you have nadhyakhya pru murchimadam vitto bhoga pratyayoho and bhittam shakalam. The third usage over here is bhittam shakalam. Bhida iti dhatuhu atrapi bhittam iti shabdaha free of cost dattaha asti dipatyate shakalam pieces iti arthaha. So bhittam iti nipatyate shakalam chet tadbhavati, the one which has a lot of pieces, basically one that is shattered. Ityasya shakalam iti artha. Asmin arthe bhittam iti shabdasya prayogaha bhavati. Bhittam tishthati, bhittam prapatati. So something that is shattered into pieces falls down. Bhittam prapatati. Shakala paryayaha ayam. Shakala is basically pieces, destruction, or whatever, pieces being caused by destruction. The synonym for that is bhittam over here. And now Kashika says something very weird in the next line. It has been actually debated by various, so I saw at least 3 or 4 further commentaries on Kashika. It has been debated in various commentaries, but let me explain what he's writing over here without going into further analysis. So he says, Atra bhidikriya shabda vyutpattehe eva nimittam bhidikriya vivakshayam hi shakala vishaye bhinnam bhittam ityeva bhavati. So what he is saying over here is, even though the sutra says bhittam shakalam, which means that for indicating pieces, we use the word bhitta. So bhida is to break. Bhinna, the normal word will be bhinna, which means separated or distinct or differentiated. But when there is an explicit meaning of shattered into pieces, अत्र भित्तम इति शब्दः प्रयोक्तव्यः इति अस्य सूत्रस्य अर्थः, भित्तम शकलम. Now what Kashikakara says over here is that even in the case of this shattering, the bhinna word can be used, seen in the loka. So the bhinna word, which is the normal word bhida plus ta, by the normal process you will get bhinna. That bhinna word can be used in all cases. It can be used to indicate, say, separation. It can be used to indicate a difference. In addition, it can also be used to indicate shakalam. On the top of it, bhittam is a special word to be used only for shakalam. So what Kashikakara is saying is bhittam shakalam ityanena sutrena केवलं भित्तम इति शब्दः शकलम अस्मिन् अर्थे प्रयुज्यते इति नोच्यते. भित्तम इति शब्दः शकलम अर्थे, भिन्नम इति शब्दः अपि शकलम अर्थे इति अस्य सूत्रस्य अर्थः इति काशिकाकारेण अग्रे उक्तम् अस्ति. So look at this, what he says. भिदिक्रिया विवक्षायां हि शकल विषये भिन्नम भित्तम इत्येव भवति. Both of these words, bhinna and bhitta, are acceptable when it comes to the concept of shakala, concept of creating the pieces. Bhinna and bhitta, both of these are actually acceptable. In all other cases, it will still be only bhinnam, is what he is saying over here. There are multiple, to and fro arguments on this particular topic. Why does Kashikakara say this? It is against the commentaries and so on. We probably take this with a pinch of salt. Just understand it as one point of view rather than taking it as a siddhanta. There is no mention of this in Kaumudi. Kaumudi just says bhittam iti shakalam ityasminarthe bhinnam iti anyata. And that's, in order to support this particular argument, there is one particular sentence inserted by Kashika. He says, Atra bhidikriya shabda vyutpattehe eva nimittam. So somehow I want to derive the word bhitta. Therefore, a support of bhida dhatu has been taken. Bhida dhatu will give bhinna only. It will never give bhitta, is what he is saying. Understand this point. Bhida will always give bhinna. In addition, there is a bhitta obtained by this particular sutram. Therefore, the acceptable forms are bhitta and bhinna both when it comes to shakala. So this bhitta is not really derived from the bhida dhatu. It is just a nipatana given, and purely for demonstrating, justifying the shabda vyutpatti, the bhida dhatu has been forcefully put in the picture. Bhidikriya shabda vyutpattehe eva nimittam tatra bhida dhatoho arthaha na svikartavyaha. Bhidikriya vivakshayam, when the actual artha of the bhidadhatu is being thought of, shakala vishaye api bhinnam iti bhavati, ataha ahatya sarvasya ekatra rupena arthaha kaha bhavati, bhidadhatuhu asti chet nityam bhinnam, shakalam bhavet anyat kimapi bhavet tatra bhinnam ityeva bhavati. In addition, bhitta word has to be somehow justified using the bhida dhatu, and therefore shakala vishaye bhittam iti api bhavati. Iti atra Kashikakarasya ashayah. Kaumudi stays completely clear of all this. Bhittam shakalam bhinnam anyata. So bhida dhatoho vishaye radabhyam nishthato naha purvasya chadaha ityanena praptam natvam nishidhyate. Shakalam ityasya vishaye bhida plus the bhittam shakalam iti atra ashayah. Let's take 2 more sutras and we will stop. We still have 15 minutes. So that's all, basically 3 different apavadas. न dhyakhya pru murchivadam vittam bhoga vitto bhoga pratyayo and vittam shakalam. These are the three apavadas for radabhyam nishthatonah and sanyogaderatah dhator yanvat. So we go back to our normal flow. We have radabhyam nishthatonah sanyogaderatah dhator yanvat. Both of these are done. The next one, let's take this next sutram. Again, it has been taught earlier, so it should be quicker. Lvadibhyaha iti atra sutram. Lvadibhyaha ityanena lvadiganasya dhatubhyaha vihitasya nishtha pratyasya takarasya nakaradeshaha bhavati. So lvadi is an antargana of ninth gana kriyadi. Go to the antargana drop down and select lvadis over here. This one. If you select lvadi over here, you will say all these dhatus are sub inside ninth gana. Basically, the subset of ninth gana is called lvadi. A total of 24 dhatus. I think Kaumudi says 21 ekavimshatehe lu adibhya pragvata, because some variations are not considered in all dhatu pathas. So for example, you can see there is a vli varane and bli varane. Very similar looking dhatus. Mostly it is desha difference. Some people pronounce v as b, so for them bli has been included in that version of the dhatu patha. Other version vli varane. Similarly, I think somewhere over here there is a jru and there is a jru. So very similar pronouncing dhatus. Kaumudi's version does not take all of these. Therefore, he says ekavimshatehe. There is no harm in saying 24. Actually, there is a reason why he says ekavimshatehe. The samskaranas, the printed editions of Kashika give only 4 dhatus in lvadis. So basically, the printed editions of Kashika, they say there are only 4 dhatus, which is literally a blunder. And in order to point out that blunder, he has actually written ekavimshatehe over here. This has been discussed further in some commentaries, but we'll not go in those details. Essentially, ekavimshatehe, 21 dhatus or 24, whatever you want to take, definitely more than 4. So ekavimshatehe, lu and so on. Ittebhya pragvat, whatever has been I am telling since the last 1.5 hours, takarasya nakara deshaha. So lu plus ta becomes luna, dhu plus ta becomes dhuna, ja plus ta becomes jina, samprasaranam bhavati, grahijyavi, pli becomes plina. So all these are examples from the lvadi gana. lvadi ganaha iti kriyadi ganasya antarganaha अस्मिन् गणे विद्यमानेभ्यः धातुभ्यः विहितयोः निष्ठा प्रत्ययोः तकारस्य नकारादेशः भवति. Now an interesting thing to observe over here is that a lot of dhatus over here are dirgha rkaranta dhatus. Shru, pru, vru, bru, mru, dru, and they are interspaced. They are not like one single list. So you have, there is no lu which is rukaranta, there is tru, kru, pru, then again there is dhu is not rukaranta, shru, pru. So they are actually mixed up, but a lot of them are actually rukaranta dhatus, dirgha rukaranta dhatus. And what is happening for dirgha rukaranta dhatus? Dirgha rukarantanam dhatunam vishaye tatra prarambhe ruta idhatoho ityanena rukarasya ira adeshaha bhavati. So you will get an ira adesha over there. As soon as you get the ira adesha, there is a repha coming at the end, and therefore radabhyam nishthatanaha purvasya chadaha ityanena eva sutrena nishthanatvam bhavitum arhati. So specifically, there is no prayojana of dirgha rukaranta dhatus in the lvadi gana, but they have been written over here, and therefore I am also writing or mentioning them in this particular list. So if you ignore this dirgha rukaranta dhatus, still around 10 to 12 dhatus are remaining. So Kashikakara's paksha of 4 dhatus is definitely nonsense. It's actually a typing mistake. I will explain about that at some other time when there is context for that. So lvadigane vidyamanaha bahavaha dhatavaha dirgha rukarantaha santi etesham vishe rukarasya ira adeshe krute lvadibhyah ityasya na kinchana prayojanam yataha radabhyam nishthatonah purvasya chadaha ityaneneva nishthanatvam bhavitum arhati. Ataha dirgha rukaranta dhatunam lvadigane samaveshah tatra chintyaha, not much use iti atra arthaha asti. There are a bunch of vartikas present in the Lvadibhya Sutra. We will take that and we will stop. Very simple ones actually. So 4 vartikas are there. We'll take a look at these vartikas and then we'll take a look at the commentary and we'll stop. Rukara Lvadibhyaha ktin nishtavad bhavati iti vaktavyam. all these vartikas are extremely easy to understand. Dirgha rukaranta dhatus and lvadis. Now this itself gives a hint that lvadi should not have dirgha rukaranta dhatus in it, because otherwise dirgha rukaranta dhatus and lvadis, this had no meaning. So dirgha rukaranta dhatus and lvadis, for these tin pratyaya nishtha sadrishaha bhavati. So dirgha rukaranta dhatubhyah lvadiganasya cha dhatubhyah vihitah tin pratyaya nishtha sadrusham eva karyam karoti. We will learn about this when we take the section of the tin pratyayas. But there is this vartika, so I just quoted over here. So lu plus tin, the nishtha pratyavat bhavati ityukte kim? Takarasya nakaradesha bhavati. So luni, puni, etadrishani rupani siddhyanti, etesham vrittihi, etesham artham sarvam anantaram pashyamaha. The next three vartikas are important. Dugvoho dirghascha iti vaktavyam. There is a dhatu in the bhwadi gana called du gatau. It's a raswa du. There is a typing mistake. Raswa du gatau. And there is a dhatu in the tudadi gana gu, to excrete, purishot sarge. So gu purishot sarge and du gatau. Basically, these are not in the lvadi gana. They are not in the kriyadi gana at all. Lvadi gana is a subset of kriyadi gana. So they are not in the kriyadi gana. So they are not in the lvadis. But for these two dhatus, nishtatakarasya nakaradesha bhavati, तथा च अंतिम वर्णस्य इत्युक्ते उकारस्य दीर्घादेशः भवति. So du plus kt will be dun, gu plus kt will be gun. Very simple vartikam. For these two dhatus, the nishtha takara becomes nakara and ukara becomes dirgha. Dugvoho dirgha cha. Cha ityukte takarasya nakaradesha bhavati iti api tatra agacchati, api cha dirghah bhavati iti arthah. So dirghah cha iti vaktavyam. Tritiyam vartikam punyaha. Punya pavane iti dhatuhu, to cleanse, to purify iti arthah. Punyaha vinashe iti vaktavyam. Puya is a dhatu in the kriyadi gana but not in the lvadi gana. So it is not in the lvadis, punya. So again, the lvadibhyah sutram is not applicable. Asya dhatoho vishaye vinasha ityasmin arthe nishthanatvam bhavati. So pu plus kta. If you want to indicate destruction, you get a nishthanatvam. Punaha yavaha, destroyed grains iti artha. If you want to say purified grains, which is the original meaning of the pu dhatu, then it will be putaha yavaha. So cleansed, purified grains is putaha yavaha. Parantu dhatu nam aneka arthaah santi. Tatra puna iti shabdaha vinashtaha ityasmin arthe prayujyate. So punaha yavaha, vinashtaha yavaha. केवलं विनाशः इत्यस्य अर्थस्य ज्ञापनार्थं पूय धातोः विहितस्य निष्ठातकारस्य नकारादेशः भवति. Finally, the fourth vartikam sinotehe grasa karma kartrukasya iti vaktavyam. Little bit explanation is needed. Sinotehe grasa karma kartrukasya iti vaktavyam. Understand this. There is a shriya dhatu in the fifth gana, swadi gana. Shriya bandhane iti dhatuhu asti, to tie together. Now, when you say tie together or when you say tie to something, it has multiple meanings. So, for example, you can take a cow and you can tie it to a say pole or say whatever, a wall or say a cot, whatever. So that particular meaning is the most common meaning for the bandhana. But there is another interesting meaning that is used in the language, that is seen used in the loka. So, for example, when we have say a semi-solid food item, and when we take this semi-solid food item and make balls out of it so that they become a little bit more structured, a little bit more solidified, probably for consumption. So, for example, we have rice, we make some balls of rice and then eat them. So that particular process is also being referred as a bandhana over here. The individual rice grains are being tied together to form a pinda, a ball. That is the particular context over here. Now understand, in this context, understand the meaning of this vartikam. खाद्य पदार्थः स्वयमेव पिंडरूपः भवति. This is a karma kartru prayoga. We have seen karma kartru a lot of times earlier, even when we were talking about kelimar pratyaya many classes ago, when the karma itself becomes karta. So for example, because of the help of, because of the temperature or because of the weather or whatever, the food item itself becomes a ball like structure, pinda like structure, without a cook actually interfering over there. So without Devadatta converting it into a pinda, because of the weather or because of other conditions, the food item itself becomes a pinda. That particular very, very specific situation. Khadya padarthaha swayameva badnati, itself becomes a pinda rupa, itself becomes a ball like structure, which means it is easier to eat. So we create a ball like structure out of rice because it is easy to eat. So that process automatically happens. That is in order to describe that situation. See the shia bandhane dhatu, the ta pratyaya attached to it becomes a na. So you get sina. Somebody is saying auto solidification. That's a good translation. Auto solidification. Iti vaktum shakyate. Grasaha. Grasa is a bite or a food item that you are eating. Swayameva sinaha. Itself becomes a ball or a solidified structure. So the reason I was avoiding the word solidifying is because original entity is not liquid. It is also solid. It may be a little bit paste or it may be a little bit less dense, but it is still solid. It has become a little bit more pinda rupa, more concentrated and easier for eating. So asya dhatoh vishay khadya padartha swayameva badnati. The food item automatically becomes, pinda rupa. In that, to indicate that particular food item, we use the word sina. Again, it's a vartika karas, vartika, so it's a very unique prayoga is being justified over here. Si plus ta becomes sina over here. So somebody is asking, does it mean the solidification of, say, ghee or oil in the cold weather? So it's not exactly the solidification of ghee or oil, because solidification of ghee or solidification of oil, it does not make it easier for us to eat. So the point over here is that solidification must make it easy for us to eat. Khadya padarthasya swayameva tatra bandhanam yada bhavati tatra saha khadanartham sulabhaha bhavati. It becomes easy for eating. That particular aspect is being discussed over here. So khadya padarthasya खाद्य पदार्थ स्वयमेव पिंड रूपः भवति इति निर्देशार्थम अत्र त प्रत्यय से नकारादेशः भवति. सिन इति शब्दः अत्र निष्पद्यते. ग्रासः स्वयमेव सिनः. Automatically it becomes solidified or it becomes ball like structure. Let's take a quick look at the commentary and we will stop. लुय छेदने इत्येतत् प्रभृतिः व्री वर्णे. So that's where I was saying I have fixed this error over here. Originally, if you look at any book on Kashika, it will say vru varane. Now, if you look at the dhatu patha over here, luya chedane ityasmat vru varane, only 4 dhatus are there: lu, stru, kru, and vru. So all the samskaranas of Kashika that are available will say vru varane. The correct form is vri varane. How do I know? Because if you take a last dhatu, pli dhatu, which is the last dhatu of the lwadi gana, and if you go to the immediate next dhatu, it is essentially vri varane. So now we can understand there could be a typo or there could be, slip of pen or tongue, whatever. Instead of vri, somebody wrote vru in their manuscript and that got propagated ahead. So I'm not saying it's an error on Kashika Kara's part. It's probably an error in copying these manuscripts or whatever. Obviously, I mean, this looks like an error. Instead of vri, somebody says vru, and that thing blindly gets copied ahead, or say faithfully gets copied ahead, whatever you want to say. But vri varane, so this vri is not to be included till that point. The previous dhatu, pli iti yavat. So the original versions say vru varane, parantu atra vri iti asti. लुय छेदने इत्येतत् प्रभृतिः व्री वर्णे इति यावत् वृत्करणेन समापिता ल्वादयः गृह्यन्ते तेभ्यः उत्तरस्य निष्ठातकारस्य नकारादेशः भवति. So that's the ल्वादिभ्यः लून धून जीन and so on. Let's take a look at the vartikas and we will stop. ऋकार ल्वादिभ्यः क्तिं निष्ठावद् भवति इति वक्तव्यम्. Explained. दुग्वोः दीर्घश्च इति वक्तव्यम्. Explained. पूयः विनाशे इति वक्तव्यम्. Explained. सिनोतेः ग्रास कर्म कर्तृकस्य इति वक्तव्यम्. सिनः ग्रासः स्वयं एव, the food item becomes solidified on its own. ग्रास कर्म कर्तृकस्य, why on its own? Because grasah kevalam karma asti tada na bhavati. So if Devadatta solidifies that particular food item, say makes a ball out of it, then we say the grass is a sitta. So the sitta is still the visheshana for grasa. It is the grasa which is sitta if Devadatta makes it. It is the same grasa which is sinna if it itself becomes solidified. Grasa is not English grasa. It is Sanskrit. Grasa means a bite, which is basically a small piece of food item that you can eat at one point in time. That's grasa. It will be called sina if it solidifies on its own. It will be called sitta if Devadatta solidifies it. And in other meanings of bandhana, like for example, an animal is taken and it is bound to a rod, this sutra, this vartika is not to be applied. So grasa karma kartukasya itikim sita pashena sukari. A female pig is being tied, sita, because of a thread, a pasha. There, this particular vartikam is not applicable. Sinotehe grasa karma kartukasya iti vaktavyam ittenena vartikena kevalam कर्म कर्तुः विषये ग्रासस्य विषये च अत्र सिन इति प्रयोगः भवति. एकविंशतेः लुयादिभ्यः प्राग्वत लूनः कौमुदीं पठन् अस्मि अहं. गर्हिज्जा इति जा इत्यस्य सम्प्रसारणे जीनः. दुग्वोः दीर्घश्च, so we saw that. पुयः विनाशे, we saw that. सिनोतेः ग्रास कर्म कर्तुकस्य, we saw that. Let's quickly read and stop. दुग्वोः दीर्घश्च, दु गतौ दूनः, to do upatape iti na gruhyate. So only one of the du dhatus is there, the other du dhatus is not there. He immediately gives a prayoga from Shishupala Vadham. Mrudutaya dutaya iti magha. So in Shishupala Vadham, magha uses the word mrudutaya. So mruduta, so dutta I think is a form of the mrudutaya dutaya. Sorry, dutta is this form over here where the nakara is not being shown because it is to do upatape. Then gunaha, that's the gu dhatu. Puyaha vinashe, punaha yavaha vinashtaha. Sinotehe grasa karakartukasya, sinaha grasaha. Grasa itikim, same example. Sita pashen sukari. Karma kartruka itikim, sita graso, sitaha grasaha devadattena. Iti atra vadibhya iti sutram. Now I wanted to have two more slides today, but we are running out of time. So let's take them next time. Atra abhyasah asti adyatana vargasya. There is nothing, probably the simplest homework of all. 20 prakriyas. Adhodattani nishtha rupani sasutram sadhayata, 10 of them. Adhodattani nishtha pratyanti rupani sasutram sadhayata, 10 more of them. So this first 10 are about the nishtha conversion. The second 10 are about the previous part. Jhali pare anyani karyani yani uktani santi. So two individual sections I have given. Please try this out. Please sign up for the homeworks. I think there are still some slots empty from the previous homeworks. Please sign them. Sign up for them. Samapayamaha atraiva. Shwaha vargaha nasti. Agrima saptahe punarekvaram vargadvayam. Tadanantaram cha agrima saptahante abhyasa charcha bhavishyati. अष्टाध्यायी जगन्माता यस्य चित्तात् समुत्थिता वेदानामुपकाराय तस्मै पाणिनये नमः. शब्द ब्रह्म समाराध्य कृतवान्यो विलक्षणं सर्वाश्चर्यमिदं शास्त्रं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः. येन धौता गिरः पुंसां विमलैश्शब्दवारिभिः तमश्चाज्ञानजं भिन्नं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः. धन्यवादः.